Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive, and today we're tackling something really important, nutrition and cancer, especially as it relates to older adults.
Sounds pretty complex.
It can be, but luckily we've got an awesome excerpt to guide us. It's from Chapter 10 of a book called Integrated Geriatric Nutrition.
And this chapter focuses on oncology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And get this, it talks about this good, better, best mantra, which I think is super helpful because it acknowledges that there's no one-size-fits-all approach, especially for older adults.
Yeah, they often have unique needs and considerations.
Totally. And one of the things I'm really excited to dig into is how we can actually support our body's natural defenses against cancer. Like, have you ever heard of apoptosis?
Apoptosis?
Yeah, but it's basically like programmed cell death is so damaged, or abnormal cells kind of self-destruct to protect the body.
So like a built-in self-destruct button for unhealthy cells.
Exactly. And guess what? The foods we eat can actually influence how well our bodies do this.
That's pretty amazing.
Right. And the chapter dives into 3 key areas where nutrition can make a difference.
Okay, I'm listening.
So first, minimizing exposure to environmental toxins, then supporting healthy gene expression, and of course, promoting that apoptosis we were just talking about.
So like a 3-pronged approach?
Exactly. Now, when it comes to environmental toxins, I was blown away by the book's recommendation to check out the Environmental Working Group's website.
Oh yeah, www.uwg.org.
Yep. They have a ton of research on how to minimize exposure to things like pesticides and other harmful chemicals.
That's a fantastic resource.
Totally. And the chapter emphasizes that even small changes can make a big difference over time, like choosing organic produce when you can, using air and water filters, and even opting for non-reactive cookware and food storage containers.
I've actually been trying to do that more myself.
It's a great step to take.
Yeah.
Now, get this. The chapter also talks about how our diet can actually influence how our genes express themselves.
Wait, really?
Yeah. It's not just about the nutrients themselves. It's about how those nutrients interact with our genes and impact our overall health.
That's mind-blowing.
I know. And apparently eating a rainbow of colorful fruits and vegetables is key here.
Makes sense. Those vibrant colors got to be good for something.
Right. And it all ties into cancer prevention, too. The chapter cites this crazy statistic from the American Cancer Society that over 70% of cancer cases in the U.S. are potentially preventable through lifestyle changes.
Wow, that's huge.
Isn't it? And it's really encouraging to see that the American Cancer Society's guidelines for cancer prevention align perfectly with this integrative approach. They emphasize that diet and lifestyle aren't just afterthoughts, but foundational pillars of good health.
So it's not just about treating cancer, but preventing it in the first place.
Exactly. So let's get practical. What does a preventative diet actually look like?
Well, the chapter lays out some key elements.
Okay, fire away.
First and foremost, you got to aim for a vibrant plate with at least 80% of it filled with fruits and vegetables.
80%? That's a lot of produce.
It is, but trust me, it's worth it. And it's not just about quantity, but variety. Remember those colorful phytonutrients we talked about? Different colors signal different beneficial compounds. The chapter actually has a whole table breaking down the benefits of each color.
Okay, I need to see this table.
We'll definitely get to that.
Awesome. So besides all those colorful powerhouses, what else is on the menu for a cancer preventative diet?
Well, adequate protein is crucial, especially for older adults. But the right amount varies from person to person. Fiber-rich foods are also key for a healthy gut microbiome, which we know plays a huge role in overall health and immunity. And of course, healthy fats are essential for vitamin absorption and fighting inflammation.
So far, it sounds pretty delicious.
Right. But there's also a big emphasis on avoiding certain things.
Like what?
The chapter stresses minimizing chemicals in processed foods and even being careful about supplement choices. It's a reminder that not all supplements are created equal, and some might even contain harmful contaminants.
Yikes. So it's all about being mindful of what we're putting into our bodies.
Exactly. Now, what about folks who are already facing cancer? How does nutrition factor into treatment?
That's a great question, and it's something I'm really curious about, too. How can nutrition play a supportive role during such a challenging time?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. This chapter dives into how nutrition can support older adults going through acute cancer treatment, which often comes with its own unique set of challenges.
I can imagine. So what are some of the key takeaways when it comes to nutrition during active treatment?
The chapter really stresses the importance of establishing adequate caloric intake, even when dealing with side effects like nausea or loss of appetite. And it highlights the potential benefits of a plant-based, nutrient-dense diet like the Mediterranean diet.
So even during treatment, those colorful fruits and veggies are still superstars.
Absolutely. And while it's always best to talk to your doctor before making any major dietary changes, the chapter mentions that some folks might benefit from cutting back on refined carbs and sweeteners, or even exploring a ketogenic diet under the guidance of a qualified practitioner.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want to make any drastic changes without your doctors, okay?
Right. But the chapter also points out that a lot of older adults with cancer end up struggling with nutritional deficiencies.
Oh, wow. Why is that?
Well, there are a lot of factors that can contribute. Things like changes in taste and smell, difficulty chewing or swallowing, nausea, and even emotional distress like anxiety and depression can all impact how much someone eats.
That makes sense. It's a reminder that caring for older adults with cancer is about so much more than just the physical aspects.
Wow.
There's a whole human being there facing unique challenges.
Exactly. And speaking of individualized support, this chapter has a really helpful table outlining dietary and supplemental recommendations for managing common treatment side effects like diarrhea, anemia, and fatigue.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm always fascinated by natural remedies that can work alongside conventional treatments.
Me too. And some of these recommendations are pretty intriguing, like using glutamine for diarrhea, exploring a gluten-free diet for malabsorption, and even harnessing the power of ginger and honey for nausea.
It's like a blend of ancient wisdom and modern science.
I love that. But hey, before we get too lost in the details, I think we should take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll explore those therapeutic diets we mentioned, delve into this super interesting case study the chapter highlights, and uncover the potential of some pretty fascinating supplements like medicinal mushrooms.
Sounds good. We'll be right back after a quick break.
All right, so we've talked about how nutrition can help manage the side effects of treatment, but what about after treatment is over?
That's a great point. What about nutritional support for cancer survivors? How do they make healthy choices that stick for the long haul?
Well, the chapter addresses that too, and the good news is a lot of the recommendations for preventing cancer are also really helpful for long-term health after treatment.
That makes sense. So it's about building healthy habits that last.
Exactly. But there are some additional things survivors might want to consider, like incorporating intermittent fasting or exploring plant-based or even vegan diets. The chapter also mentions low-carb or near ketogenic approaches.
So it's about finding what works for each individual and making it a sustainable part of their lifestyle.
Exactly. No more crash diets or crazy restrictions.
Speaking of finding what works, remember that table we were so excited to discuss before the break? The one breaking down the benefits of different colored fruits and vegetables.
Oh, yeah. Table 10.1. It's like a rainbow of cancer-fighting goodness.
I love that. So give me the highlights. Which colors pack the biggest punch?
Well, let's start with red foods, like tomatoes, watermelon, and red bell peppers are full of lycopene. It's a powerful antioxidant that's been shown to actually inhibit tumor growth.
Inhibit tumor growth. How does that work?
It interferes with the formation of those new blood vessels that feed tumors.
Ah, so it's like cutting off their supply lines.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Okay, what about green? I know leafy greens are good for you, but what makes them stand out when it comes to cancer prevention?
Green is definitely packed with goodness. Broccoli and broccoli sprouts, for example, they're rich in these compounds called sulforaphane, which have been shown to have chemopreventive effects.
Chemopreventive. So they can help prevent cancer from developing in the first place.
That's right. And things like kale spinach and other leafy greens contain lutein, which has been linked to inhibiting cancer cell growth and even inducing something called cell cycle arrest.
Wow, it sounds like loading up on greens gives our bodies a whole arsenal of weapons to fight cancer.
I like that analogy.
Okay, so we've got red, green. What other colors should we be aiming for?
Well, orange and yellow, fruits and vegetables like carrots, sweet potatoes and oranges, they're full of carotenoids, another group of potent antioxidants that protect our cells from damage.
Okay, so reds, greens, oranges, yellows. What about blue and purple? Those are always the most exotic-looking fruits and veggies.
They are, and they've got some pretty impressive benefits, too. Blueberries, blackberries, and grapes, for example, they contain anthocyanins.
Anthocyanins? What are those?
They're these powerful compounds that have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, but they also have anti-angiogenic properties.
Anti-angiogenic, what does that mean?
It means they can help stop the formation of new blood vessels. Remember how we were talking about lycopene and how it cuts off the supply lines to tumors?
Yeah.
Well, anthocyanins can do that too.
So those beautiful blue and purple hues are more than just pretty. They're actually helping to fight cancer.
Exactly. And the table goes on to highlight even more colors and their unique benefits, like white and brown garlic onions and mushrooms, for example. They contain compounds that boost our immune system and help our bodies detoxify harmful substances.
This is amazing. It really makes you appreciate the power of nature and all the incredible healing compounds found in plants.
I totally agree. But let's shift gears for a minute and talk about supplements. I know the chapter mentions several, but I'm really curious about protein powder. It seems like everyone's adding it to their smoothies these days, but is it actually beneficial, especially for older adults with cancer?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I've heard mixed things about protein powder. What's the chapter's take on it?
Well, the chapter acknowledges that protein powder can be really useful for boosting protein intake, especially for people struggling with loss of appetite or having trouble eating solid foods. It can help improve nutritional status support, glutathione levels, which are super important for detoxification, boost immunity, and even reduce inflammation.
Okay, so far so good. But I know there's always a but when it comes to supplements.
You're right. The chapter does include a cautionary note about the potential for contamination in protein powders.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, even brands made with organic ingredients have been found to have high levels of heavy metals like lead, cadmium, and arsenic, and some even contain BPA, which is that chemical found in some plastics.
That's definitely concerning.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as just grabbing any protein powder off the shelf.
Exactly. It's super important to do your research and choose brands that have been rigorously tested for contaminants. And as always, it's best to talk to your doctor to see if protein powder is right for you, and if so, which type and dosage are best.
Great advice. Now, speaking of important nutrients, let's talk about vitamin D. I know it's important for bone health, but what's the connection to cancer?
Well, vitamin D actually plays a way bigger role in our health than just strong bones. It also has powerful anti-inflammatory and immunomodulatory effects.
Immunomodulatory, what does that mean?
It means it helps regulate our immune system, which is super important when it comes to fighting cancer.
So it's like a multitasking superhero nutrient. But do most people get enough vitamin D naturally?
Unfortunately, vitamin D deficiency is pretty common, especially as we get older. Our skin's ability to produce vitamin D from sunlight actually declines with age.
That makes sense. So supplementation might be necessary.
It often is, especially for people with cancer or who are at risk of developing cancer. The chapter recommends aiming for a serum level of 45-65 ng/ml, which often requires taking a supplement. But it's important to get your levels checked regularly and adjust your dosage as needed.
Okay, noted. I'm definitely going to ask my doctor about getting my vitamin D levels checked. Now, there's one more supplement that really caught my attention. Medicinal mushrooms. It sounds a little out there, but the chapter seems to suggest they have some serious potential.
They absolutely do. Medicinal mushrooms have been used for centuries in traditional medicine, and modern research is starting to back up those claims. They contain all sorts of compounds that can modulate the immune system, act as direct anti-cancer agents, and even enhance the effectiveness of chemotherapy.
Wow. They're like little powerhouses of healing.
Mm-hmm.
Are there specific types of medicinal mushrooms that are especially good for cancer prevention or treatment?
The chapter mentions several reishi, turkey tail, maitake shiitake, and cordyceps. They each have their own unique properties and potential applications.
That's a lot to remember. But it's fascinating to think that something as simple as a mushroom could have such a powerful effect on our health.
I know, it really speaks to the incredible power of nature and all those healing substances that are still waiting to be discovered.
Well said. And I think this is a great place to transition to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore the fascinating case study of Phil and delve even deeper into those therapeutic diets like the ketogenic and Mediterranean diets. So stay with us, folks. Welcome back. We left off talking about those therapeutic diets, the ketogenic and Mediterranean diets. What makes them so special when it comes to cancer?
Well, it's important to remember that therapeutic diets aren't for everyone. They should always be discussed with a healthcare professional, but they can be really powerful tools when used correctly. Let's start with the ketogenic diet. It's all about drastically reducing carbs so your body burns fat for fuel instead of glucose.
Okay, so it's like flipping a metabolic switch.
Exactly. And this switch leads to the production of ketones, which can have some interesting effects on cellular processes, including those involved in cancer development.
So how does that impact cancer cells?
Well, the idea is that many cancer cells rely heavily on glucose to grow and spread. So by taking away their main fuel source, the ketogenic diet might slow down tumor growth and make cancer cells more vulnerable to treatments like chemo and radiation.
Wow, so it's like cutting off the enemy's supply lines. That's pretty amazing. But what about the Mediterranean diet? It seems to be more about what you do eat rather than what you restrict.
That's true. The Mediterranean diet is all about abundance. It focuses on whole, unprocessed foods like fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and olive oil.
Okay, that definitely sounds more appealing.
Right. And it's naturally packed with antioxidants, fiber, and healthy fats, which have all been linked to a lower risk of cancer and improved overall health.
So it's a more holistic approach, nourishing the body with tons of beneficial nutrients.
Exactly. And there's a growing body of research supporting its role in cancer prevention. Studies have shown that people who follow a Mediterranean diet tend to have a lower risk of developing certain cancers like colorectal, breast, and prostate.
That's really encouraging. It shows how much power we have to impact our health through the choices we make every day.
Absolutely. No, the chapter also touches on some more sensitive topics like tube feeding alternatives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It stresses the importance of choosing high-quality ingredients that are easily absorbed and promote an anti-inflammatory approach even when someone can't eat solid food.
That's a really important consideration. It's about making sure people get the best possible nutrition no matter what their circumstances are.
Exactly. And, I think one of the biggest takeaways from this whole deep dive is that an integrative approach to nutrition and oncology is multifaceted. It's not about finding a single magic bullet, but about understanding each person's unique needs and creating a plan that addresses their specific challenges and goals.
I couldn't agree more. It's empowering to realize we have so many tools at our disposal, from diet and supplements to therapeutic diets and lifestyle changes.
And don't forget about those other lifestyle factors we mentioned, like stress management, exercise, and getting enough sleep. Those are all crucial for overall health and can have a big impact on cancer risk and outcomes.
It's all interconnected. Mind, body, and spirit. Well, this deep dive has been incredibly informative, but I know we've only scratched the surface of this complex topic.
There's always more to learn, but hopefully this has sparked your curiosity and given you a good foundation to explore further.
If you're feeling inspired to learn more, I highly recommend checking out the full Chapter 10 of Integrated Geriatric Nutrition. It's packed with even more insights and practical tips.
Definitely. And that amazing table we discussed, Table 10.1, it's a great place to start.
Yes. It's a visual reminder to fill your plate with as much color as possible. As we wrap up, we want to leave you with a thought-provoking question. Considering everything we've talked about today, what's one small step you can take to incorporate these principles into your own life? Maybe add an extra serving of veggies to your dinner, or swap that sugary snack for a handful of nuts.
Every little bit counts.
It's so true. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to your health. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay well.